city decided to, close up restaurants with the exception of carryout, we had to do a quick pivot and just decide to go with the carryout for a few days a week. It's like we're lucky to be doing 10-15% of what we were doing, and that's being optimistic.
I keep saying on the show that one of the things I fantasize about when all of this is over is going out to eat at one of my favorite restaurants. There's a question of whether my or your favorite restaurant will even survive. A new survey from the James Beard Foundation found that only 1 in 5 restaurant owners in cities that are shut down are certain they will be able to stay in business until things get back to normal. People inside the industry are raising the alarm about a kind of restaurant apocalypse we may be witnessing. One of those people is Tom Colicchio, award-winning restaurateur, the head judge and executive producer of Top Chef, and he joins me now. And Tom, everyone I've talked to in the food industry cannot overstate how bad things are right now. What are you hearing? What are you seeing?
I think things are bad. There's a dire situation out there in our industry. I'm on a conference call every morning with several chefs, several hundred chefs across the country, and at first we were somewhat optimistic because we thought that the government was going to respond to our needs. And as PPP was rolled out and reality set in, so many restaurants are just not going to make it.
And what do you mean by that? Is that because the money ran out too quickly? Because this sort of first come, first served, other folks were able to get to that needed cash?
Well, that's part of it. But actually, if you have cash, if you actually got your loan, the mechanics of PPP doesn't work for restaurants. First off, you have to hire your staff back by June 30th. And we're not going to be open by June 30th. And so we're probably not going to be open by August 30th. So if we bring our staff back 2 months, that money will run out and we'll be right back on unemployment. What we need to do is change that date of origin back to when we actually open the restaurant. And then if we had 2 months of payroll being paid and rent being paid and utilities being paid, then we'd have a shot. Actually, we need probably 4 to 6 months. Then we may have a shot. But as it's written right now, I'm going to hire my staff back if they want to come back because they know that they're going to be laid off in 2 months. And quite frankly, right now, unemployment is a pretty good deal. And so they're not going to take the risk of coming back only to be laid off 2 months from now. It just doesn't make sense.
So I think I just understood something. So there's a sort of one-size-fits-all date that is the qualifying date to kind of get that loan forgiven. And what you're saying is it just doesn't work for your industry because obviously restaurants are going to be one of the things that comes back much later than other sorts of small businesses.
Exactly. PPP works if you're open right now. Let's just say you have a pharmacy, maybe 50% of your sales are depressed because of COVID, and your payroll is being taken care of and your rent is being taken care of. That's great. We're not open. In fact, we were mandated to shut down. And I have to say, Chris, when we were asked to shut down, no one complained. We knew we had to do our part because we knew we had to actually stop the virus, or we were never going to have a business or an industry. And so we all did it, and we were happy to do it. But we're in a very different situation than most businesses right now. When you think about the amount of people that we employ, independent restaurants employ over 11 million people in this country. That's directly. Indirectly, when you think of farmers and fishermen and winemakers and cheesemakers and all the people that we actually employ in our total universe, it's probably closer to 20 million people. And so we're not only talking about our jobs that are disappearing. I'm hearing from cheesemakers that they're selling their herd because 90 or 70% of their sales go to restaurants, and that is cut off. I mean, you're reading about dairy farmers just dumping milk and farmers plowing fields under. Why? Because they don't have restaurants to service anymore. And so there's a lot more than 11 million jobs at stake. And I got to tell you, what we don't want to do is maybe get to the point where we can open up and then a month later we're shut down. Because even when we open up, we're looking at what? Maybe 30% of our business is going to come back. And so we need a plan once we get open to actually sustain us for a period of time as well.
You know, it's interesting as you talk about this. What's sort of coming to my mind is that there was the rescue package, and there was a specific part of the package for the airline industry. And I thought in some ways that made sense. It just the airline industry is unique. It has unique challenges. It's down 98%. There's a huge amount of fixed capital that can't come back. You got all these planes. You got to have an airline industry. What I'm hearing from you is that it makes me think that there actually needs to be something specifically about the parts of the economy that are going to be the ones that, like yours, that are going to be coming back the latest in terms of how we think about rescue.
That's absolutely right. In terms of the airline industry, one thing the government does is they have warrants. So they're going to actually make money just like the government made money on TARP. And so that's not going to happen. They don't want warrants in our restaurants. But you're absolutely right. We need a plan after. If we fix PPP to change the date of origin and we get at least 4 months of payroll protection and rent protection, then we need something further than that. And we're going to need another plan to actually get us open, because I have to take care of my accounts payable before deliveries start coming my way again. And so it costs a good amount of money just to get the doors back open again. And we're going to need protection for that. And then we'll also need some protection because we're not going to be at nearly 100%. It's going to be mandated that we're not at 100%. Gavin Newsom yesterday in his press conference said that restaurants, if they did, when they open, they're going to have to go down to at least 50%.
Yeah, David Chang, a well-known chef of Momofuku and other places, had this great thread where he's asking folks in places like South Korea and Taiwan that have reopened, like, what restaurant scenes look like. And yeah, it's 25%, 50%. It's huge placards in between people. It's not going to be normal for a very long time. And whatever rescue package has to take care of that as well. Tom Colicchio, man, great. Always.
Well, the question is,
go finish up.
The question isn't when we can open up. The question is when the public feels safe enough to gather in great numbers again. That's the big challenge right now, and that's when we get a vaccine.
And that's going to be a while. Tom Colicchio, always great to talk to you. Thank you so much.